What's going on, people? Today I'm going to be talking to you about the Mammut. Now, I was actually really interested in this unit, so I did reach out to Dale at SX Pro and asked him if he could send one over, because from what I heard on the audio examples from other people's videos, it was quite impressive, but I just had to check it out for myself. Now, as you know, this unit actually can control the hardware digitally over Ethernet cables. So for that reason, for the remainder of the video, I will be working on the plugin. So first things first, what is this unit? This unit is everything you need to control your low end and everything that you would want to do to your low end in a mix, be it compression, upward expansion, be it equalization, boosting low end or cutting low end. It's all of those things, and saturation as well, let me not forget. It's all of those things in one unit. Now, just a disclaimer, this video is for people who are working at the highest level, because for people who aren't working at the highest level, you're going to see this, you're going to be so impressed with the sound, and then you're going to go and check how much it costs. And then how much it costs is going to impact what you think of the sound. However, for those who are audio professionals, you know how hard it is. Oh, thanks, babe.
That's okay.
You know how hard it is to get that final 5%. And generally, it costs to get that final 5%. So this unit, first and foremost, is for the person who is probably okay with buying a Fairchild or a Herchild or buying a £10,000 Fern compressor or EQ. Like, this is a unit that sits in that quality, that realm of audio products. So just had to get that disclaimer out the way. But without further ado, let's jump into how this thing sounds. Now, to take you through the controls briefly, we have a high pass filter, and you can turn that on and off, and then also change it to a 12 dB slope or an 18 dB slope. We then have the variable shelf EQ, but I'm going to get into this and show you how it sounds because you really need to hear it. And then we have the crossover selection point. Now, the crossover selection point selects whichever point that the compressor or the expander is affecting. So if I want to compress or expand everything below 100 Hertz, then I would set this to 100 Hertz. And now the compressor is only affecting everything below that frequency range. And then after this compression section, we also have the saturation section, which is turned on here. Now, when you hit the second harmonics, when it's set to off, they're just off. But if you want to turn on the second harmonics, then you need to either choose low or choose high. But essentially, this is controlling just the normal harmonics within a unit. And then you can have additional second harmonics if you want to. And you can set it to pre or post the unit. But coming back to the EQ section, let me just take you through how that section sounds. And I'll do my best to explain to you what's actually going on with the little bit of the magic that's working in this particular EQ. Now, for this particular section, if you pay attention to as I turn the low hertz and the high hertz, it isn't actually adding in a different point of EQ per se, but what it's doing is, if you imagine this as a really broad bell curve rather than a shelf EQ, think of it as a really broad bell curve. The low and the high is setting what the edges of that point is. So essentially, at the moment, it's boosting a range between 25 Hertz and 105 Hertz. But let's say I wanted to just dial in on where that kick drum is. I would then set the low range to maybe 72 and the high range to maybe 44. And let's have a listen to how that sounds. But there is a little trick with this unit. If you actually do want to use it as a traditional low shelf boost, then if you turn the compressor on, but you don't do any compression, you can actually select the crossover point as the point of your low shelf. So if I want to boost everything below 200 hertz, I can use the makeup gain from the compressor section and it will boost everything below that frequency. But let's have a listen to how the compressor section sounds now. So I'm using the listen because I want to hear what range I'm affecting and I want to dial that in. So I'm going to use 125. But I'm going to do a little bit more than my makeup gain because I want to compress, but I also want to get more low end. Now, let's say I want to get more sub frequencies out, but I don't want to affect the kind of 60 hertz and above. Then that's where this Q comes into play, because I can set the high end of this to 44 and then I can EQ this now going into the compression to get more weight in the really sub harmonics. Let's check that out. So hopefully you can hear through that example, by playing with how all of these different components interact with each other, you can do so many different things. Like if there was a mix, for example, and I didn't want to do any low end compression, I just wanted to EQ the bottom end, then I can of course not do any compression, set the compressor to just be turned off, and I can just set that high to around 44. So I'm now doing just that sub harmonic boost. Or the opposite, if actually the kick was sitting a little bit higher but there was a ton of low end energy, then I could set this to 53 and set that to 105, and now I'm boosting a little bit higher up in the end. Or if I wanted to do just a low shelf, then I can use the crossover point and do the gain. But now we've heard how that sounds, let's have a listen to my absolute favorite section, which is the expander. Now, in order to access the expansion mode, you essentially just hit this expand button. But what you'll notice is as you expand the low end, sometimes you might want to expand the dynamic range in the low end without boosting the amount of low end. Like you don't want a low end EQ. And that's where you can hit this attenuate button. And what actually happens is instead of this boosting or turning up the makeup gain, this is instead turning down the makeup gain. So if you do more expansion in the low end, you can balance it out as well. So if you see me hit this knob and play with this, then you know what's going on there. Now, for an example of this, I'm firstly going to keep it as it is. I've set my kick and bus fader, like my bass fader, minus 3 dB for all of these examples. But in order to show you the power of the makeup gain, what I'll do in the second half is I'll set that to be 0 dB, where the level of the kick is going to be quite present. But I just want to do expansion, and then we can have a listen to how it sounds like that as well. But firstly, let's check this one out together. Now, I'm liking how that's sounding, but what I'm noticing is it's grabbing and expanding the low end of the snare, and I want to really isolate the kick. So I'm going to use the listen mode to just isolate and fine tune what I'm affecting. So I'm getting less of the snare now and mainly the kick. But let's say I want to dial in a little bit of low end, but in that lower weight, because as much as I'm expanding, I want to get a bit more of that sub, then I can go ahead and use the EQ going into this circuit as well. Little high pass. So now to turn up my kick and bass bus and play with the expansion and then do a little bit of attenuation as well. So here you're going to hear too much. And then lastly, let's hear some of the harmonics as well. I'm going to set it to pre because you lose a little bit of low end when you start driving it. Add in some second harmonics as well. Losing a bit of that low weight at the moment. There we go. Let me play with this crossover though. Bruv. Oh my days, bruv. I'm editing this video, yeah? I've watched this whole video back and I'm sitting there going, I've done everything. I did not touch the attack and release and ratio controls once in this video, and I'm so sorry. I'm going to do an extra part of the video and I'll put it now. But I do want to say that when I'm doing these examples, I'm not always thinking like, make sure to touch every single unit, but I also am thinking, how can I get the result that sounds good? And the reality is attack set at 3 and release set at 30 and the ratio at 1.25 was just giving me what I wanted to hear. However, there's a lot more control that you can get out of the unit by playing with those. So I will be sure to record that now. So I'm setting this to the quickest attack and quickest release because as you change those settings, you can actually get more saturation out of this unit. So there, you hear that really breaking up, right? You would never use this, but have a listen after I stop talking to what's happening with the saturation. See how that saturation goes away? you like this content, like and subscribe. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you all next time. Also, if you like the sound of this music and you want to know more about my music, be sure to check out my website, and there's something special on there for you. It'll be at the end of the video. Bro, how can you forget to do attacker release, bro? You're crazy, Alex.